So, Payton, thanks for joining me today. Really excited to speak with you about this incredible event, Music as Medicine. I'd love to ask you to speak to the origins of the event, if you would, please.
Yeah, John Hopkins and I connected probably about a year and a half ago, and with that, sort of right around the launch of his album, Music for Psychedelic Therapy, which was a fairly pointed title for his album, and really, sort of resonated with each other in terms of, I would say, the sort of passion and ethos that we were both coming to the space with. And just, I've been a fan of John's music as well as some of the other artists that we have. And really, always obviously had a deep reverence for music and in regards to how that intertwines with psychedelic therapy or ceremonial work, or not. And John's album is really an amazing tool, frankly, in regards to psychedelic therapy as well. And so we started to look at just different ways that we could interact and build community and awareness around not only the album, but also psychedelic therapy in general. And so that's really where the idea for the event came from. And it's sort of blossomed now quite a bit with East Forest and a few others coming on board as well.
Well, collaboration is exciting in general, and I think that the nature of the work that you're doing, there's a collaborative component. There's many moving pieces. There's integration of a lot of different modalities as part of the overall healing. And music, I think, is such an incredibly powerful tool, perhaps even woefully underutilized. And that's one of the most exciting things. I think John alludes to it, and these quotes on the press release are beautiful. I'd like to read the one quote from John that you included. Psychedelic therapies are moving into legality across the world, and yet it feels like no one is talking about the music that accompanies them. In indigenous psychedelic ceremonies, the music is as important as the medicine and has been for thousands of years. Music is how you navigate the space. I think that the end of that quote alone is so resonant, so powerful. Music is how you navigate the space. You can't do this in a vacuum, can you?
No. And that's to John's quote, if you look at the indigenous or ceremonial use of psychedelics, whether it's ayahuasca, peyote ceremonies, San Pedro or Wachuma ceremonies, music is not only the, it's sort of the focal point of a lot of those ceremonies, but it's the way in which people are invoked or engaged with in that work to either evoke emotion or to John's point, navigate the space. And when you think about anybody who's been in an ayahuasca ceremony, when you think about an ayahuasca ceremony, for me, the substance of the ceremony is the music, is the icaros and the tools that are utilized in that space. They're not separate. Then it's not the drug and then the music. It's the container that's created with both substance and sound. So I agree with John in terms of just the underappreciation that maybe we've taken in regards to the more clinical researched approach to psychedelics lately. I think folks like Johns Hopkins, obviously, you can get there. And Johns Hopkins, not to be confused with John Hopkins. If you look at the information that they've put out, I mean, you can get their playlist on Spotify, and it's amazing. But I'd love to see more research with regards to how music interacts with a therapeutic experience as well.
Yeah, well, we know the power of music. I personally think that music is in contention for the greatest utilization of Homo sapien talents ever. It's a powerful manifestation of metaphysical qualities, of very primal, guttural, emotional energies. We know about how music has been used, even like in the military. You hear about where prisoners are subjected to sound, or police sirens have a sound capacity to them. Sound is very, very powerful. So I haven't seen any statistics on how many North Americans who are upwardsly mobile, who can afford a gym membership, for example, or who can have some regimen of physical fitness in their lives. I would imagine that those numbers have probably increased over time as physical fitness may be more important. It might be scaling to the amount of illness that we see in our society. But it leads me to think about mental fitness. And I'm thinking that perhaps these listening installation spaces, these immersive therapeutic spaces, in the very near future might begin to be more prevalent and look somewhat like the predominance of gyms that we see, gyms sprinkling up throughout the community, almost in direct correspondence with breweries. Yep. You know, like there's so many breweries, there's also a lot of gyms. So you got to work off what you're working into. Talk about these spaces and how they might be a new utilization of physical activity, of coming together, of something that we prioritize for ourselves in our mental health regimen.
Yeah, and I love what you said around mental wellness. My hope is, you know, with the work that's being done at the moment, we can start to transition from, you know, mental health treatment, which is imperative, to, you know, preventative mental health treatment, or mental wellness, as you put it. We shouldn't have to wait until people are anxious, depressed, suffering with substance use disorder. And so more spaces where, frankly, the other aspect of this that I think is integral is community and connection with community. And I think that's really what we're trying to create, is healing spaces where people can have a shared experience and connect with other people who have had either the same shared experience or a similar shared experience. And I think that resonates in psychedelic work as well. You know, we talk a lot about integration and this sort of notion of what is integration. And for me, integration is just, it's your life. It's not a program that you don't have your psychedelic therapy or whatever it is, and then you have your integration program and then you go on. Integration is how you're going to walk in your life. And so with that, you need to have, you know, community and collective experiences that you can resonate with other people and have as an aspect of your life, so that those experiences that you do have in therapy are not just, they're not just considered experiences that you once had and then you know, sort of transition, or that's where you can see things potentially not stick. And so I think with these kinds of events, to create communities where people can connect, have a shared experience, and that's really, you know, where a significant amount of the healing happens, is it's so much to be done in community with people, so that those experiences can really land and be mirrored back.
Now, in a way, the event that's happening tomorrow in Los Angeles is reflective of some of what you're doing in your own clinics. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah.
For anyone who's tuning into this just based on maybe the interest in music or seeing the tag of music as medicine, give us an elevator pitch for Numinous Wellness.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. We've always like tried to boil down what Numinous does into an elevator pitch, and it's always been a challenge. But really, for us, you know, we've always really looked at how do we create the necessary infrastructure for not only psychedelic therapy, but really this sort of paradigm shift in mental health care and mental wellness. How do we create an infrastructure for people that is effective, lasting, and scalable? And whether that's the therapy itself, all the way to the work that we do in the laboratory with the actual drug itself. That's really what we focused on, is how do we create an accessible, scalable platform that is really effective for people. And that's really why Numinous is here.
We're talking also about brick and mortar facilities, Absolutely. Places that people go to and receive any number of treatment regimens.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we've scaled that platform now with multiple locations in Canada, and now with a recent acquisition that we announced that we're just waiting to close, will be our first big step into the US, with the acquisition of Novamind as well.
Right, I was going to allude to that as well. That was the press release that came out last month. And it's interesting to be based here in the US and not really get the difference of what's available in Canada currently versus what's available in the US. So you are you're in North America and Canada, but you're coming down into the United States by the Novamind merger or acquisition. And can you conduct business the same way you do in Canada in the United States? How will that look? What's going to be different from what you do further north?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. The reason why Novamind was such a great acquisition for us was a lot of very similar services and sort of a way in which we were looking at the space. So there's a lot of synergies, but also some learning opportunities on both sides. Novamind has been working with ketamine-assisted psychotherapy since 2013 and has been very, very active in that space. And I would say, in a space that's gotten very crowded and I would say varying levels of depth in terms of what's being offered in regards to ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. The Novamind folks for us just really stood out as in sort of a class of their own in terms of the depth and breadth of what they were offering and the intentionality around that. And that's something that we're very excited about being able to bring up to Canada. And similarly, what we've been really focusing on Canada is also all of the integrative services that we feel are necessary to be able to provide for people, whether that's mindfulness work or creating a virtual platform to be able to engage with a therapist, to be able to bridge those two gaps, I think is really, really exciting for us. Obviously, what's been exciting up in Canada recently is the changes to the special access drug program. And that's for anybody that's not aware, that's a program in Canada that allows for unlimited amount of Canadians to get access to drugs or therapies that have not been completed the FDA clinical trials, but have shown significant clinical data. So phase 2 or phase 3 data, which now obviously with psychedelics, we have quite a host of. Psychedelics were previously restricted from being able to be applied for the special access drug program. But Health Canada has changed that at the beginning of this year. And we're very grateful to be able to announce that we've actually gotten our first approval for psilocybin assisted therapy for somebody outside of a research context. And we see that program really starting to generate some steam now that Health Canada has sort of figured out the approval criteria. So that's something that will continue to take place in Canada that obviously isn't happening in the US yet. But now you are seeing, whether it's Oregon, who obviously in January of next year is going through a legalization process with psilocybin, as well as the decriminalization movements that are happening in the US. We sort of see Canada as an opportunity to be a little bit ahead of where regulatory approval is in the US at the moment. And with that, we have a platform that can learn really in a real world setting what it is like to integrate these different modalities sort of in a more broad spread pre-approval process.
I want to talk to you about the event tomorrow with a little bit more detail. Music as medicine. In the future, it's possible that someone could go into a Numinous clinic and receive psilocybin assisted therapy, and an immersive sound healing music experience could be part of that therapeutic regimen, correct?
Correct.
So what's happening tomorrow night is an individual can attend an immersive space with visuals for not only an artistic component, but also an evocative of healing component as well. And I would imagine one could lay down and listen to the music and choose to either have their eyes closed or open. There's a lot of free will involved in a participant's experience of this event, correct?
Correct.
And then drilling down even further, if someone chose to have a psychedelic experience during this event, they could do that. They could also come without having a particularly substance-based psychedelic experience, correct?
Yeah, I think, Obviously, with the regulations in where we are, we're not encouraging psychedelic use. But I think, to that point, if you look at, as we were talking about in the beginning, the engagement of music in psychedelic or immersive sort of experiences, there's the opportunity for that to be alongside therapeutic support, or in this context, community support, sets a shared sort of experience for people, but also allows people to rely on that. And even with therapists, we're all human, and we all have, that's arguably one of the biggest variables in psychedelics, or psychedelic therapy, is that there's very much a human component to it, with the therapy and therapists that are involved as well. So any modalities or tools that can help a therapist with someone's experience is really exciting and necessary. So with this experience, giving people a little bit of a little bit of an experience of what it is like to have that very sensory immersive experience.
It's a taste of what's possible.
Sure, exactly.
Where do you think the educational component could be more robust in terms of how we utilize music and sound as a tool for our own wellness? What's an immediate option for education? I myself have been using ambient music and electronic music for a long time as part of my bike rides, for example, to go out and get into a more meditative state of mind, or a more traditional meditation, or a long walk. But a lot of that music just seems to resonate for me very naturally. And there's something innate about it, although we don't necessarily talk about it. The first ambient artist I ever got into was Brian Eno's work a long time ago when I was discovering his solo albums. I think he's kind of associated with the beginning of the ambient, scene. But there's really a quality to the music that doesn't really get talked about, and therefore there's something that's kind of underutilized, like I alluded to at the beginning, this opportunity for music to be a tool. So where can people get educated about how they can benefit from this thing that's already around them, but might not be integrated to its fullest power?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a tough one. If you think, maybe if we zoom out for a minute, you think about where would someone go to connect with people, to blow off some steam, or what have you. You think about people going to music events, concerts, the way that music has always been at the center of people sort of connecting to themselves and connecting to other people, right? It's been a part of humanity. It's been a part of people for as long as we've been around. And I think in terms of an education in regards to the psychedelic space, the thing that I always refer back to is there's a lot of people with a varying degree of understanding of what psychedelic therapy is, and how these tools are being used. And I think, if you look at the research, you have to really look at what does the therapy actually consist of. And so much of it is right now being really focused on the drug itself. But the drug is just one small aspect of what the actual therapeutic experience really is. And so, I encourage people, whether it's the MAPS phase 3 results, or the work that Johns Hopkins is doing as well. I think if you look at really how these different modalities are being used, it gives you an education and a context for how music works in the space. And then obviously, looking at the traditional use of whether that's ayahuasca or wachuma, there's a huge historical body of evidence around how music is used within those containers as well.
Well, maybe sometime for another conversation, we can drill into your experience with seeing who's coming into the vocation of therapist. Where are our therapists coming from? Where are our shamans coming from? And who's heeding this call? How does that call spread? Because as you said, absolutely integral to real, full, personalized care and thorough wellness.
Yeah.
Payton, it's an incredibly exciting event. I hope you all have an incredible time. I'm sure it'll be great. I wish I could be there. I hope I'll be there for the next one. Tell me, from where you sit now, without having had this happen just yet, what are you envisioning for future events? How do you scale this for the long term?
Yeah, I think, the thing that as you mentioned, the thing that we're excited about is, continuing with these events to build community, to build awareness about how music is used. And obviously, hopefully in the not too distant future, being able to carry out these events in our own spaces, and to have people connect, with the, as you mentioned, brick and mortar of what we're offering as well. So that's what we would love to see, and hopefully in the not too distant future, people being able to have experiences with different tools, whether that's psilocybin or MDMA as well, to really focus on their healing.
Well, thanks for taking the time to visit with me about this cool event tomorrow, May 21st in Los Angeles. I hope it's amazing. I think it will be.
You'll be missed. Thanks, Matthew.